The navy silk dress hung on the back of my bedroom door, like a promise I did not know had already been broken. I had steamed it the night before, smoothing every wrinkle from the bodice, setting the thin straps just so. On my dresser, a heavy stainless steel espresso machine sat wrapped in silver paper, with a satin ribbon the exact model my younger brother had circled in an email like a kid making a Christmas list. The dates on my kitchen calendar were ringed in thick red ink. I had taken 2 days off from my job as a senior operations analyst. The hotel near the venue was booked. I had even splurged on a professional blowout appointment for that morning. My baby brother's wedding. I was ready to be the supportive big sister smiling in the photos, holding my parents' coats, handing out tissues when Mom cried too hard during the vows. I was pouring coffee when my phone buzzed. It was a text from my uncle. "Hey Hannah, you okay? Did your flight get delayed? Did you miss the ceremony?" I frowned. I stared at the screen long enough that the coffee went cold in my hand. "Ceremony," I typed back, fingers stiff. "Uncle Mark, the wedding is next Saturday." The little dots of his reply popped up, then disappeared, then appeared again like he was rewriting his own disbelief. "No, sweetheart. Today is Saturday. Derek's wedding is this afternoon. It is over." For a second, I thought he was teasing some weird older man joke I did not understand. Then I glanced at the date on my phone. The numbers stared back at me, merciless. I did not cry right away. Instead, I felt a strange, hollow stillness open up in my chest. I set the phone down, walked over to the fridge, and looked at the invitation pinned under a seashell magnet. The script was beautiful. The date was clear. The third Saturday of October. Today was the second. My hand shook as I opened social media. I had avoided it for a few days, too busy with work and details. Now the app exploded with images. My mother Susan adjusting Derek's tie. My father Leonard raising a champagne flute, his face flushed with pride. Derek at the altar in a tailored suit, his new wife glowing in white. My parents posed with the bridal party close and complete. Someone had captioned one photo, the whole family finally together. I stared at that sentence until my eyes blurred. There was no empty chair in any of the rows. No one glancing at the door as if they expected me. My name was not tagged anywhere. No one had accidentally revealed some last-minute emergency that explained why my invitation would say one weekend while everyone else had shown up the weekend before. They did not forget me. They removed me. I looked back at the navy silk dress plastic cover, still rustling faintly from where I had brushed against it earlier that morning. The espresso machine on the dresser suddenly looked like a headstone. Something inside me did not shatter. It went very, very quiet. Before we get any further, let me say this. For years, people told me I was overdramatic, too intense, too sensitive about my family. Maybe you are hearing this and thinking the same thing. Maybe you think there must be some reasonable excuse, some misunderstanding. By the time I finished with them, and by the time they realized what I had done with the little ocean cottage they like to call ours, the word misunderstanding would never cross their minds again. I did not sleep that night. I sat in the dark of my living room, the city lights sneaking in around the blinds, casting stripes across the wrapped espresso machine on my coffee table. It looked like a casket. By morning, sunlight crawled over the hardwood floors like nothing had happened. Cars honked outside. Someone walked their dog past my window. The world moved on. I did not. I showered, pulled on jeans, a gray t-shirt, old sneakers. No makeup. I did not have the energy to build a face acceptable enough to present to the people who had just erased me. I grabbed my keys and my purse. I did not call ahead. I did not text. I already knew where they would be. Sunday mornings in my parents' cul-de-sac in Wilmington had been scripted long ago. Pancakes, bacon, coffee. The newspaper spread over the kitchen island. The drive to their house took about 40 minutes. Usually I filled it with a podcast, a true crime story, something to keep my mind busy. That morning I drove in silence, my hands clamped on the steering wheel until my knuckles turned pale. I rehearsed speeches in my head, sharp lines about betrayal and cruelty, about how you do not accidentally hand your only daughter the wrong date for her brother's wedding. By the time I turned onto their street, my heart was pounding so hard that I could feel it in my teeth. Their house looked exactly as it had when I was a child. The lawn razor neat, the big maple tree painted orange and gold with fall, the white porch swing gently moving in the breeze. My father's truck and my mother's crossover sat in the driveway side by side. Derek's flashy new electric car gleamed at the curb, the one he had bought right after I lent him a big chunk of money for a supposed business emergency. I parked at the curb, my tires crunching the fallen leaves. There was a spare key under the blue ceramic frog beside the steps. I had hidden it there years ago in case my parents ever locked themselves out. I let myself in without ringing the bell. The smell hit me first. Bacon, cinnamon coffee, the scent of warm Sundays and cartoons of safety. It hurt with a bruise. Down the hallway, voices drifted from the kitchen. Pass the syrup, honey. That photographer really knew how to capture the light, I will say that. I still cannot believe the weather. It was perfect. It was like the sky wanted us to be happy. I stepped into the archway. Morning, I said. The word slid into the room like a knife. My father froze with his mug halfway to his mouth. My mother turned from the stove, spatula in hand. Derek, seated at the island, scrolling through his phone, looked up slowly. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Time spread thin and fragile between us. Then my mother sighed to sound sharp around the edges. Hannah, we did not know you were coming back. Not I am so sorry. Not we need to talk. Not we owe you an explanation. Just an inconvenience, an interruption to a cozy morning scene. The wedding was yesterday, I said. My own voice surprised me. It was steady flat. Derek set his phone down, screen up, as if he was only pausing from something more important. Yeah, he said, it was. My invitation says next Saturday. I took a breath that scraped my lungs. The third Saturday. Today is the second. I have the card on my fridge. Dad's jaw tightened. He set his mug down and unfolded his newspaper like a shield. Hannah, do not start a scene. It is Sunday morning. I am not starting a scene, I said, even though my cheeks were burning hot. I am asking why my invitation had a different date than everyone else's. Mom flipped a pancake like she was auditioning for a commercial. It was just a placeholder, sweetheart. We were not sure of the final date when we sent yours. You know how venues are. That is a lie, I said. The word echoed against the tile. Uncle Mark knew the date months ago. So did Aunt Lisa. So did all of your friends. Everyone else's invitation said yesterday, only mine was different. Derek swiveled on his stool to face me. He looked tired, but there was an ease in his eyes. The ease of a man who had gotten everything he wanted. Look, Mom, it was done. We wanted to keep it against. Less stress, no drama. It was a vibe thing. A vibe thing. I am your sister, I said. Exactly, my mother chimed in. And you know how you get. How I get, I repeated. The words felt foreign in my mouth. Intense, she said in that syrupy, sweet tone she used when she wanted to make cruelty sound like concern. You are so serious. You overthink everything. You make people feel like they are on trial. It can be a lot for a happy occasion. You mean I am responsible, I said. I ask questions. I noticed. You read the news there. You just wanted one day when nobody was thinking about cost. My father did not look up from the paper. We thought it would be calmer without your intensity, he said. That is all. Calmer without me. So you decided, I said slowly, to lie to me, on purpose, to make sure I was not there. Hannah, do not be so dramatic, Mom said. We were going to explain later. Take you out to dinner. Show you the photos. It would have been fine. She turned back to the stove. There are plenty of pancakes. Do you want some? I stood by the refrigerator like a guest who had wandered into the wrong house. They went back. Their words moved around me, bright and casual, as if I were an extra in a scene I had not been cast in. I waited. Part of me still believed one of them would crack, that my father would slam his hand down and say, "This was wrong," that my mother would soften and open her arms, that Derek would look up and really see me. Instead, my brother dabbed his mouth with a napkin and turned to me with a hopeful brightness in his eyes. Since you are here, he said, this is actually perfect timing. My stomach clenched. Perfect timing for what? He smiled broad and used that same smile. Thinking it would be awesome to have a big family weekend next month, more relaxed. Barbecue, board games, kids running around, no tuxes, no seating charts. He paused like I was supposed to clap. And we want to use the cottage. He said it like it was a foregone conclusion. Of course. The cottage at Harbor Point, I asked. Our cottage, Mom corrected automatically. The cottage. The little cedar house perched at the edge of a tiny curve of coastline in southern Maine, with steps that went straight down to a rocky private beach. The house I had bought in my own name 5 years earlier. The house I had gutted and rebuilt on weekends, learning how to sand floors between spreadsheets. The house my parents loved to talk about as our family place on the coast when they were bragging to their friends. We already told some people Derek said visor of entitlement firmly in place. Mel's friends are super excited. So if you can just go up there next weekend, get it ready, maybe have the lawn guys come out, that would be awesome. It is my house, I said. I keep it ready. Dad snorted, folding his paper. Oh, Hannah, do not start that again. It is family property. You are just the one whose name is on the paperwork. My throat went dry. Dad, I paid the down payment. I pay the mortgage. I pay the taxes and the insurance. None of you put a cent into that place. He waved a hand like I was being pedantic. Details. Your brother cannot afford to rent a place like that right now, not with the restaurant just getting off the ground. You can. That is what family does. We share. I share, I said. You take. The room went very still. Excuse me, my mother said, her voice suddenly sharp. That has been the dynamic my entire life. I said, feeling something inside me finally click into place. I pay for Derek's auto insurance. I paid off your credit card debt when you were going to lose your second car. I helped Dad cover his back taxes. I financed Derek's food truck. And now, after you deliberately lied to keep me out of his wedding, you want to use the only thing I have that is just mine and you expect me to host. You are keeping score, my father said, color rising along his neck. That is ugly, Hannah. That is exactly what we mean. You are transactional. You think love is about receipts. He jabbed his finger in my direction. This attitude is exactly why your presence would have ruined Derek's big day. The words landed with dull thuds. I felt each one, but they did not sink into me like they used to. Instead, they piled up in front of me, a wall I could finally see clearly. If they already saw me as transactional, maybe it was time I stopped acting like their unlimited overdraft. You are right, I said. I saw them all relax at once, the way they always did when I backed down, when I twisted myself into the apologetic version of me they preferred. I am sorry, I added. Mom exhaled. Derek smirked. It is fine, he said magnanimously. Just send us the new code for the door by Friday, okay? And make sure the cleaning service goes before we get there. Mel really wants those windows sparkling in the photos. I will take care of it, I said. I turned and walked out of the kitchen. My mother called something about driving safe, her voice bright and relieved like we had smoothed over a minor misunderstanding. I drove away from their house without looking back at the front window, where I knew her silhouette would appear. I did not go home. I turned north toward the highway, toward the cottage they called ours, and I had always called someday home in the quietest part of my heart. The drive to Harbor Point took about 3 hours. As the city fell away and the landscape turned from strip malls to pine and water, I usually felt my shoulders loosen. That day, the closer I got, the more awake I felt. By the time the first glimpse of ocean flashed through the trees, the hollow numbness had hardened into something else entirely. Not rage, not even grief. Something colder. Something like resolve. The cottage sat at the end of a gravel road, shoulders tucked under a canopy of spruce and birch. The Atlantic lay beyond, gray and restless, slapping against the rocks below the deck. I had bought the place as a broken thing. The roof had sagged, the porch had tilted, the interior had smelled like mildew and regret. My parents had once owned a cheap little trailer in a campground 2 towns over, but they lost it after ignoring property taxes for far too long. They never talked about that part. They only reminisced about those magical summers by the coast. I had wanted to recreate that magic. I had thought if I built them a new summer memory, if I gave them a place to be proud of, they would finally see me as more than the responsible one, the fixer, the backup plan. I pulled into the small driveway and killed the engine. The air smelled like salt, wet leaves and cedar. My favorite smell in the world. I walked up the front steps and punched in the code. The lock clicked obedient. Inside, the cottage glowed with late afternoon light bouncing off the whitewashed walls and honey-colored floors I had sanded myself. The little blue sofa by the window, the open shelves in the kitchen, the thrift store table refinished in a soft gray stain, all the details I had chosen carefully. I did not stop to appreciate it. I went straight to the small office nook off the hallway, where a tall metal filing cabinet stood in the corner like a sentry. Derek thought I was coming up to check the landscaping. My parents probably thought the same. Hannah will come through. She always does. I pulled open the top drawer. Folders, color-coded, labeled with my neat accountant handwriting. Derek loans, mom and dad debts, cottage deed and title, tax receipts, business transfers. I sat cross-legged on the floor and pulled them all out. Paper fanned around me like a nest of ghosts. First, the cottage file. The deed crisp and official. Grantee Hannah Miles, sole owner. The mortgage statements, each one with my name alone at the top. The paid invoices for the new roof, the windows, the flooring, the electrician. All charged to my account, paid with my bonuses. I traced my fingertip over my own name until the letters blurred. Then the Derek folder. A handwritten note from him promising to pay me back for the loan that he owed me when his food truck had almost died. Over and over again, the same pattern. Emergency Hannah, short term. You know I will take care of you when the restaurant takes off. He had never paid back $1. Mom and Dad's folder? The credit card I had let Mom use just while her card got straightened out, that she maxed out on plane tickets and a new couch, then conveniently forgot to pay me back for. The bank transfer for my father's supposed tax crisis, complete with his panicked phone call about the government seizing their house. Later, in a quiet moment, my own curiosity led me to look through a bit of the record. There had never been a receipt. The lead had already been settled long ago. I had never confronted him. I had told myself some story about dates mix-ups, his stress. I had smoothed the edges of the lie until it fit into my idea of us. I stacked the papers into a cardboard banker's box I dragged from the closet. My fingers moved quickly, methodically. It felt less like packing and more like harvesting. Evidence. Every check, every transfer, every little piece of myself I had handed over under the banner of family. They said I was transactional. They had no idea. When the box was full and heavy, I stood there I came back to the on my phone, I opened the app with a smile. My account covered over the code. For years, I had shared it without thinking. Derek wants to go up with his friends for a long weekend. Mom needs somewhere to take her book club. Dad wants to impress his golfing buddies. Sure, here's the code. Sure, go ahead. Sure, I will cover the utilities. I erased the old code, entered a new one they would never guess, one I would never say aloud to them again. When I stepped back out onto the deck, the sun was sliding down toward the water, throwing orange and pink streaks across the waves. The cottage stood behind the for the first time over them. On the drive back to the city, the banker's box scraped against the trunk with every turn. It felt like I was transporting a bomb. By the time I carried it up the stairs to my apartment, my legs were shaking. I set it on the dining table and walked away without opening it again. I did not need to. I knew what was inside. Instead, I made tea and sat on the couch. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. Derek's name flashed on the screen. Hey, can you send the new gate code for the cottage? Mel wants to go up early. No apology, no explanation, nothing. Just another request. I stared at it. Then I turned my phone off and tossed it into the chair. If I was going to do this, I could not keep answering every time they called. There was only one person I could think to call, and she had been warning me about my family for years. I picked up my phone and scrolled to her name, Tasha. We had met in college. She was loud where I was quiet, quick to anger where I was quick to appease. She said no like it was her default setting. I had always admired that, even when it scared me. She picked up on the first ring. Hey, stranger, she said. I was just about to... I saw the wedding photo. Throat tighten. I did not go, I said. Silence. What do you mean you did not go? She asked slowly. They told me the wedding was next Saturday, I said. They gave me the wrong date on purpose. Uncle Mark texted me yesterday to ask if I was okay. That is how I found out. There was another beat of silence. Then I heard rustling like she was already grabbing her keys. I am coming over, she said. Tash, it is late. You have work in the morning. Unlock your door, she said. Now. 20 minutes later, she was in my living room. hair in a messy bun sweatshirt, half-zipped a bottle of red wine, and a bag of spicy chips under her arm. She took one look at my face and did not ask if I was okay. "Tell me everything," she said. We sat on the floor. The tea went cold beside my untouched mug. I told her about the dress, the calendar, the espresso machine. I told her how my mother had said I was too intense for a happy day. I told her about Derek's vibe thing and my father's lecture about being transactional. Her nostrils flared with every detail. And then I said after all of that, Derek asked if he and Mel could use the cottage for a big family weekend. Tasha stopped mid-crunch. She put the chip down. "After they deliberately cut you out of the wedding," she said. "Yes. And your mom called the place family property again." "Yes," I said. I said no. I changed the locks. I took every financial document related to them from the cottage, the boxes on the table. Her gaze snapped to the cardboard box, then back to me. "Hannah Miles," she said softly, and there was something like pride in her voice. "Finally." "I feel sick," I admitted. I pulled my knees to my chest. "It feels like I am betraying them, like I am stealing something that is theirs." "They betrayed you first," Tasha said, "and that is not just emotional betrayal. That is money, real money." She got up, went to the table, and flipped the lid of the box open. She skimmed the labels on the folders. Her brows shot up. "How much?" she asked. "I do not know," I lied. Her head whipped around. "You are a numbers person," she said. "You always know. How much have you handed them in the last, say, decade?" I closed my eyes. "The down payment on the cottage," I said slowly. "The roof. Derek's truck tires. The food truck. Dad's taxes. Mom's card. The restaurant line of credit I co-signed." The figure had been lurking in the back of my mind for a long time, a shadow I refused to turn toward. "Maybe," my voice dropped, "maybe around $160,000. Tasha let out a low whistle. "That is not family help," she said. "That is you funding 3 lifetimes of bad decisions. That is your retirement. That is your security. That is a luxury car and 2 world trips." She sat back down across from me. "They are not going to stop," she said quietly. "You know that, right? Not unless something forces them to." "If I refuse the cottage, they will make me the villain," I said. "They will call our relatives and tell them I am vindictive because of the wedding. They will twist it. They always do." "Let them," she said. "But you do not go into this with just feelings. You go into it with facts, with law. You need someone in your corner who does not care about their tears." She pulled out her phone and scrolled. "I am sending you a name," she said, turning the screen toward me. "Her name is Andrea Blake. She is an attorney. She specializes in estate disputes and family financial abuse. My cousin used her when his siblings tried to cut him out of a will. She is a shark." "A lawyer?" I asked. "Against my own parents and brother." "Not against," Tasha said. "For you. This is not about punishing them. Not yet. This is about protecting yourself. You need to know what is actually yours. You need to know if they can legally claim that cottage as family property just because they made memories there. You need to know if any of those loans to Derek can be enforced." She reached over and took my hand, squeezing hard. "They do not see you as a daughter," she said. "They see you as an ATM with a decent sense of style. If you do not shut that machine down, they will keep pressing withdraw until there is nothing left, and they will blame you for being broke." My mother's words echoed in my mind. "You kill the mood. You are too intense." Maybe intensity is just what it looks like when someone finally stops letting you walk all over them. "Okay," I said. My voice shook, but the word felt right. "I will call her tomorrow." "Good," Tasha said. She stood and opened the wine. "Tonight you are going to drink this, eat these chips, and not answer a single text from your family." My phone buzzed, then still face down on the chair. It kept buzzing. I did not pick it up. That night, for the first time in a long time, I slept without dreaming of saving anyone. Andrea's office sat on the 27th floor of a glass tower downtown, the kind of place my father would have bragged about walking into, pretending he belonged there. The reception area smelled like leather and printer ink. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the city stretched out below like a circuit board. Andrea was a compact woman in her early 40s with close-cropped dark hair and eyes that missed nothing. She shook my hand firmly. "Hannah," she said. "Tasha told me a little bit about what is going on. Come on back." She led me into a conference room with a long table and a view of the harbor. A man in a soft gray sweater sat at one end with a laptop and a small calculator. "This is Colin," Andrea said. Forensic accountant. Since there is significant financial overlap between you and your family, I asked him to join us. I placed the banker's box on the table. It looked cheap and flimsy against the polished wood. I brought everything, I said. I am an analyst, so I keep records. I just never looked at them all together. That is how these situations usually work, Andrea said. You do not audit your own family. You assume they will do the right thing. Abusers count on that. For the next few hours, I told the story of my adulthood, ledgers and bank statements. Colin divided the documents into neat stacks. Personal loan, property, business obligation, credit cards. He moved quickly, fingers flying over the calculator, cross-checking dates on his laptop with public property and tax records. Every so often he would pause, his mouth tightening, then jot something down on a yellow pad. It was humiliating and liberating at the same time. Each piece of paper was proof that I had not imagined their need, proof that my confusion had a pattern. Okay, Andrea said finally, sliding the cottage file toward her. Let us start with the big one. My heart beat in my throat as she reviewed the deed, the mortgage, the insurance. Hannah, she said after a long moment, I am going to give you the easy answer first. Legally, this cottage is mine. There is no trust, no shared title, no easement, no covenant. My mother says it is a family property, I said. Andrea's mouth twitched. She can say that, Andrea said. She can also say the moon is made of cheese. The law disagrees on both counts. You are the sole owner on the title and the sole borrower on the debt. You pay the taxes. There is no legal instrument that gives them any rights beyond whatever you choose to grant as a license holder. If they go there without my permission, I asked. Then they are trespassing, Andrea said, her tone flat. If they try to move in, it is attempted squatting. If they damage anything, it is damage. If they try to pretend they have something, I swallowed. The relief tasted almost bitter. They are not confused, I said. They know. That is why they are careful to keep me just happy enough to keep saying yes. Colin slid a sheet of paper toward me. At the bottom, a number was circled in red pen. This is the total of documented funds you have given or loaned your parents and your brother over the last 8 years, he said. This does not include the opportunity cost of lost investments or interest. The number was a little higher than the one I had whispered to Tasha. Seeing it written down made my stomach flip. It is a lot, I said. It is an entire future. Without respect. Andrea laced her fingers together. So she said, we know where you stand. The cottage is yours. The loans are for the most part informal, though some texts and notes could support legal claims if you chose to pursue that. The question is not what you can do. She looked me in the eye. It is what you want to do. I thought of Derek's text about the gate code, the way my mother had flipped pancakes while I begged for an explanation. My father calling me transactional like it was a slur while his entire for years. Andrea nodded slowly. What I want, I said, surprising myself with the clarity of it, is for it to stop. All of it. I want to secure the cottage. I want to make sure they can never touch my finances or my credit again. And I want them to know that I know exactly what they have been doing. Andrea smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the sharp, precise smile of a surgeon who had found the tumor and knew exactly how to cut it out. Then here is what we are going to do. Clear language about trespassing. Notifications to every bank and credit agency removing my name from any joint accounts or guarantees where possible. A certified letter itemizing outstanding debts for my own tax purposes, formally declaring them unrecoverable and stating that no further financial assistance would be forthcoming. It will be aggressive, Andrea warned. They will feel attacked. They will likely respond with gaslighting, guilt, and possibly public scenes. They already used my love for them to siphon 6 figures out of my life, I said. I can handle some scenes. Good, she said. Because you mentioned your brother wants to use the cottage next month. When exactly? The 3rd weekend of November, I said. Andrea's eyes gleamed. Perfect, she said. We will have the letter delivered this week. That gives them plenty of time to cancel their barbecue and tell their friends why they no longer have a free ocean view rental. For the first time in a very long time, I felt something like power. The letters went out on a Wednesday morning, hand-delivered by a courier Andrea trusted. One envelope to my parents' house, one to Derek's apartment. Copies filed, time-stamped, notarized. I went to work. My job at the logistics company had always been a refuge. Trucks and shipments did not lie. They either arrived or they did not. Delays could be traced to weather, not whims. Problems could be solved with reroutes and spreadsheets, not apologies and tears. My phone stayed in my desk drawer, turned face down and set to silent, just like Andrea had suggested. They will call, she had said. They will flood you with messages. Let them. Do not respond. Anything you say will end up twisted. If there is anything truly threatening, save it. We may need it later. At 9:15, the drawer began to vibrate. Short bursts, then long ones. A constant rattling against the metal. I kept my eyes on my monitor. I answered emails. I updated delivery estimates. I forced my breathing to stay slow. You are safe, I told myself. This time you are not alone with it. By 10 o'clock, the buzzing stopped. I let myself exhale. Maybe they had read the legal language and realized there was nothing to argue with. Maybe they were actually ashamed. Maybe... The phone at my desk rang, the internal line from the lobby. Hannah, hi, the receptionist said, her voice strained. It is Sarah downstairs. I am so sorry to bother you, but your family is here. Of course they were. My old instinct kicked in first, a full-body flood of dread. I saw them in my head, red-faced and loud, embarrassing themselves, embarrassing me. My chest tightened. I told them you were in a meeting, Sarah whispered. But your father is yelling at security. They keep saying they just need 5 minutes. I am coming down, I said. I hung up, smoothed my skirt, and walked to the elevator. My reflection in the stainless steel doors surprised me. My eyes looked tired, but there was something in my jaw I did not recognize. The lobby was all glass and polished stone, sound echoing from every surface. I heard my father before I saw him. I am her father, he was barking at the head of security. You cannot keep me from my own daughter. She owes us an explanation. I stepped out of the elevator. Dad, I said. The word carried. They turned. My mother's mascara was already smeared beneath her eyes. My father's face was mottled red. Derek paced behind them like a caged thing, his hands opening and closing. Hannah, my mother said, rushing forward like she meant to embrace me. She stopped short when she saw my expression. What is this? What is this nonsense about lawyers and trespassing? Hello, Mrs. Miles, the security chief said stiffly. We have explained that personal matters cannot. I got it, Owen, I said, thank you. I stood a few feet away from my family, close enough to be heard, far enough that my father could not grab my arm out of old habit. The cottage is mine, I said, legally, fully, completely. I have decided you no longer have access to it. That is what the letter said. Derek stepped forward, waving a crumpled piece of paper. You canceled the landscaping, he said, voice cracking. You changed the door code. We have people planning to be there. You cannot just pull the rug like that. It is insane. What is insane, I said calmly, is lying to your sister so she misses your wedding and then showing up at her job to demand the keys to her house. We made a mistake, my mother said, tears spilling now. We already told you the invitation mix-up. You did not make a mistake, I said. You admitted in my kitchen that you thought the day would be calmer without me. You chose to cut me out. That is not a typo. People were watching. Colleagues walking through with coffee slowed down. A visiting client sat very still in one of the lobby chairs. The security guard stood by, arms crossed, eyes on my father. We can talk about this at home, Dad hissed, lowering his voice. You are making a spectacle. You are the ones who came here, I said. I am at work. You are destroying this family over some house, he said. Over some money. After everything we have done for you. I laughed, a short, humorless sound. It startled even me. Everything you have done for me, I repeated. You mean raising me, feeding me when I was a child. That is called parenting. Dad, not an investment. Derek thrust the crumpled paper toward me. Sign this, he said. It is just permission for the vendors to access the cottage next weekend. Then we can figure out the rest later. We will forget this lawyer nonsense. He said it like a favor, like mercy. I am not signing anything, I said. If you have questions, you can direct them to Andrea. Her contact information is at the bottom of the letter. You hired some lady to come between us, my mother sobbed. Your own parents, your own brother. You came between us when you decided I was good enough to be your bank and your housekeeper. But not good enough to be seen at Derek's wedding, I said. My father stepped toward me, hand raised like he might grab my shoulder. Owen moved between us, his posture calm but firm. Sir, he said, you need to back up. This is my daughter, Dad said. This is an employee in this building. Owen replied. Right now, you are just a man causing a disturbance. If you do not leave, we will have to ask the police to escort you out. You would not call the police on your own father, he said, looking past Owen at me. I would, I said quietly, and I will. My mother made a small, wounded sound. Derek cursed under his breath. The elevator dinged behind me. I hit the button. I am done, I said. From now on, if you want something from me, talk to my lawyer. Otherwise, do not contact me. I stepped into the elevator. As the doors slid shut, I saw Owen gently but firmly steering her toward the revolving doors. My father sputtering, my mother crying, my brother genuinely lost for the first time in his life. The doors closed, the sound of the lobby cut off. The sudden quiet felt like stepping into clean air after living in smoke. By the time I got home that night, I was depleted. My muscles ached like I had run a marathon. My brain played the lobby scene on a loop, anxiety trying to convince me I had gone too far, shame whispering that I had made things worse. I ordered takeout. The smell of sesame and garlic filled my apartment. I ate half of it without tasting anything. Then, just as I was about to collapse into bed, someone knocked on my door. I froze. Andrea had told me to call the police and my parents. My hands trembled as I approached them. It was not my parents. It was Uncle Mark. He stood in the hallway holding a battered brown briefcase, his shoulders hunched in his tan raincoat. He was my mother's older brother, the quiet one at holidays, the man who always sat at the far end of the table sipping bourbon and saying very little. I opened the door but did not step aside. If you are here to talk me into forgiving them, I said, save your breath. He shook his head, the corners of his mouth turning down. I am not here for them, he said. I am here for you. Something in his tone made me move aside. He came in and set the briefcase in his pocket, but he did not sit there. He looked around my small glance on the windowsill. The coat hung carefully on the stand, the stack of mail neatly sorted. I heard about what happened at your office, he said finally. Your mother called hysterical. Your father called furious. Derek called whining. I am sure they told you I am ruining their lives, I said. They did, he said, and I told them to go to hell. My head jerked up. I had never heard Uncle Mark curse in my presence. He sat down on the edge of the couch and patted the briefcase. I have watched this for most of your life, he said. Back then I told myself it was just their parenting style, that siblings are never treated exactly the same. I told myself you were strong enough to handle it. He looked up at me, eyes glossy. But what they did with that wedding, he said softly, that was not just favoritism, that was cruelty. And I realized that my silence was part of it. He opened the briefcase. Inside were stacks of papers rubber banded together. I was the executor of your grandfather's estate, he said. I handled the family. But when I saw what they did to you with the date, I went back and looked. He pulled out a stapled stack and handed it to me. Read the top one, he said. The email was from my father to my mother, dated years earlier. The subject line was Derek's business loan. I read the words once, then again, just to be sure I was not misinterpreting them. He had written that the bank had denied Derek, that they needed cash quickly, that he thought they should ask me. There were instructions. Wait until she is in a good mood. Talk about how proud you are of her. Make it a family thing. No need for a contract if you play it right. Hannah cannot resist helping if she feels seen. My stomach lurched. I remembered that dinner. They had taken me to a steakhouse just because. Dad had toasted my promotion. Mom had squeezed my hand and said she was so proud of the woman I had become. I had floated all the way home, heart warm, certain I had finally done enough. The next week they had asked for the money. I had not even hesitated. Mark handed me another email, this one from my mother to Derek. Do not worry about the cottage. Hannah pays for everything, but she knows it is for the family. Tell her you want to spend more time with her and she will say yes. She is desperate for us to like her. The words blurred. I set the pages down carefully like they might bite. They knew, I said. My voice sounded distant to my own ears. They knew exactly what they were doing. They preyed on you, Mark said. They weaponized your love. He reached into the briefcase again. And there is something else, he said. Your grandfather left you something when you graduated college. A check. It was not a fortune, but it was a good start for a savings account. $5,000 made out to you. Mom said Grandpa died with nothing, I said numbly. He did not, Mark said. He left small amounts for the grandkids. For you, he wanted to acknowledge that you were the first in the family to finish college. I am ashamed to say I did not follow up on whether you got it. I assumed your parents gave it to you. Then I found the canceled check. He handed me a photocopy. There was my name on the payee line, and below a signature that was not mine, my father's sharp, unmistakable handwriting. My knees gave out. I sat on the floor, the paper trembling in my hand. This is forgery, I said. Yes, Mark said, it is also theft. Everything that had felt like overreactions, like me being too intense, too sensitive, too selfish, suddenly snapped into new focus. It had not been clumsiness, or misunderstanding, or them being bad with money. It had been a pattern. Manipulation, exploitation, fraud. I picked up my phone with hands that were still shaking and dialed Andrea's number. She answered on the second ring. Hannah, she said, is everything all right? No, I said. But I think it could be. My uncle is here. He has emails and a copy of a forged check from my grandfather's estate. He has proof they planned to manipulate me. Proof they stole from me before I even knew I had anything. The line went very quiet. I am on my way, she said. Do not let him leave. I am bringing Colin. I hung up and looked at Mark. Thank you, I said. He nodded. It is past time somebody stood on your side, he said. For the first time in my entire life, I believed that someone actually was. By midnight, my living room looked like the set of a legal drama. Andrea sat on one end of the couch with her laptop open, fingers flying as she scanned through the printed emails. Colin hunched over the coffee table with a magnifying glass and the photocopy of the forged check. Mark sat in the armchair, rubbing his temples, answering their questions as best he could. This is not just carelessness, Colin said after a while, tapping the stack of emails with his pen. This is long-term coordinated exploitation. And the forging of the check, Andrea added, is a criminal offense. The statute of limitations clock does not start until the victim discovers the crime. You discovered it tonight. She looked up at me. We have leverage now, she said. Leverage for what I asked. For whatever you want, she said. Up until now, we were playing defense, protecting the cottage, protecting your credit. Now we can go on offense. She outlined my options. Press charges. Sue them for the stolen inheritance and the fraudulent loans. Drag everything into court where their lies and manipulations would go on the record. Or use the threat of all of that as a bargaining chip. Abusers like this, Andrea said, tapping the emails again, depend on secrecy. They count on their victim being too ashamed to tell anyone. The minute you shine a light, they scatter like roaches. I do not want to drag this through court for years, I said. I do not want them in my life that long. Then we give them a choice, she said. We draft an agreement. You release any claims for criminal charges related to the forged check and some of the fraud in exchange for a complete and permanent severance of financial ties, a cessation of harassment and written acknowledgement that the cottage is solely yours and that they have no claim to it now or in the future. And if they refuse, I asked. Then we walk this evidence down to the police station, Andrea said, and to a civil court. It will not be pretty. They will be embarrassed. Their friends will know. Their siblings will know. Mark shifted in his chair. Your parents care more about their image than almost anything he said. They will sign anything if they think it will keep people from finding out what they really are. He was right. I could see my mother's face paling at the thought of our cousins reading those emails in some court record. I could imagine my father sputtering as a judge asked him to explain why he thought forging his daughter's name on a check was acceptable family management. I want it to end, I said. I want my life back. My money back would be nice, but at this point I would settle for peace. Andrea drafted the new letter right there at my coffee table. It was not poetic. There was no drama in the wording, just facts. We have evidence of fraud, forgery, and long-term financial abuse. In light of this, our client is willing to forego pressing criminal charges and pursuing civil damages if the enclosed agreement is signed. If you contact me directly, disparage her publicly, we will proceed with legal action. I read it twice. My heart hammered so hard that the words blurred, but I made myself breathe slowly until they steadied. This is the nuclear option, Andrea said quietly. Once we send it, there is no going back to pretending this is just a family spat. It stopped being just a family spat the minute my father forged my name, and my mother wrote that I am desperate for them to like me, I said. Send it. The next week was a strange suspended time. The letters went out. The silence that followed was different from the one after the wedding. That silence had been different. Then the ritual started. My Aunt Brenda called one afternoon. The voicemail was shaky. Hannah, sweetheart, it is Aunt Brenda. Mark showed me some things. I had no idea your parents gave you the wrong wedding date. Your mother told us you chose work over family, that you were on a business trip and could not make it. I am so sorry. My cousin texted to say that Derek was raging online, accusing me of trying to bankrupt him. But Uncle Mark had quietly posted screenshots of the emails under Derek's rant. The comments turned. People I barely knew called my parents behavior shameful. As the financial dominoes fell. When we sent letters removing me as guarantor on Derek's restaurant line of credit, the bank reviewed his file. Without my score propping up the numbers, the risk profile changed. They called the loan. Derek did not have the collateral to cover it. The restaurant announced a temporary closure for unforeseen circumstances. Tasha texted me a screenshot from social media. Derek's wife had posted a moody photo of herself back in her childhood bedroom with a caption about reassessing priorities. If I called the bank and offered to go back on the loan, the restaurant would reopen. My parents would not be whispered about at church. Derek would not be the guy who let his dream die. But every time the guilt swelled, I pictured the navy dress hanging unused on the back of my bedroom door. I pictured my mother flipping a pancake while telling me I ruined moods. I pictured my father calling me transactional while expecting a six-figure line of credit from my signature. I held the line. 3 weeks after Andrea sent the second packet, she called me. They wanted Is there any reason for me to go? I asked. Legally, no, she said. We can handle this entirely through attorneys. But sometimes for closure, my clients need to look their abusers in the eye one more time and let them see that the old script does not work anymore. I thought of my mother's tearful voice, my father's booming anger, Derek's entitled sneer in the lobby. I thought of the little girl I had been trying to make herself smaller and softer so they would not explode. I will go, I said, but on my terms. Andrea. They were already seated when I walked in. My mother sat in her Sunday best hair, carefully blown out makeup, flawless again. Only the tightness around her mouth betrayed anything. My father looked older than I remembered, shoulders slightly hunched in his suit jacket. Derek, in a wrinkled shirt, stared stubbornly at the table. Their lawyer, a man whose name I forgot, almost immediately sat beside them with a leather folder. Andrea gestured to the chair at the head of the table. You sit here, she murmured. This is your life we are negotiating, not theirs. I sat, my hands were steady. Hannah Mom said immediately, her voice wobbling. Honey, please, this has gone too far. We are family. We made some mistakes, but bringing in lawyers and threatening prison, this is not you. No, I said. It is the version of me you created finally waking up. Dad's jaw clenched. You are going to throw away decades of family ties over one bad decision about a wedding date, he said. It was not one decision, I said. It was a lifetime of you taking and rewriting the story so that I felt guilty for noticing. Andrea slid the document across the table. This is the agreement. She said, her voice calm but carrying. If you sign. Hannah waives her right to pursue criminal charges for the forged check and certain documented instances of fraud. In exchange, you agree to a complete and permanent severance of all financial ties. No more loans, no more access to her accounts or credit. You also acknowledge that the Harbor Point cottage is her sole property and that you will never attempt to access it, claim it, or represent it as family property again. You also agree not to contact her directly moving forward. If you do, you will be in breach and we will proceed legally. Their lawyer cleared his throat. We feel this language is unnecessarily harsh, he said. Surely there is a way to de-escalate. Hannah is under no obligation to be gentle with the people who exploited her, Andrea said. She is offering leniency by not going to the police. That is the de-escalation. Mom burst into tears. I do not understand how you can do this to us, she cried. After everything we gave you. You gave me life, I said. You fed me, you clothed me. That was your job. I am grateful. But that does not earn you unlimited access to my bank account until the day you die. It does not give you the right to steal my inheritance. It does not justify lying to me about my brother's wedding. We were trying to protect him, Dad snapped. Your attitude, your constant criticism. I was trying to protect him, I said. From bankruptcy, from the IRS, from his own impulsiveness. You used that. You used me. And when my presence became inconvenient to your fun, you cut me out. Derek finally looked up. You are enjoying this, he said. His eyes were full of hurt and fury. You are finally getting to feel superior to all of us. There is nothing enjoyable about realizing your family never loved you the way you loved them, I said. There is nothing fun about sitting here asking you to sign a piece of paper so you will stop stealing from me. I pushed the documents toward him. You want the restaurant, I said. Earn it on your own. Build your own credit. Mortgage your own future instead of mine. He stared at the agreement, his hand trembled. If we do not sign, he asked. Then I file charges, I said. I send those emails and that forged check to the district attorney. I sue you for every loan I can legally prove with interest. And I will win, and everyone will know. Silence spread out over the table. Outside, gulls swooped over the harbor, oblivious. My father folded his arms. Your uncle poisoned you, he said. He always resented that I was the one with the nice house. He is turning you against us. Uncle Mark gave me the truth, I said. You gave me a lifetime of stories that only served you. Mom reached for my hand. I moved mine into my lap. You will be all alone, Hannah, she whispered. You cut us off like this. You will have no one. Holidays by yourself. No grandchildren visiting their grandparents. No family dinners. Is that really what you want? I thought of Tasha showing up with wine and chips. Of Uncle Mark sitting in my living room, eyes full of regret and loyalty. Of the cottage quiet and waiting the ocean singing behind it. I have people who love me without invoices attached, I said. I will be fine. I looked at the pen sitting by Dad's elbow. Sign, I said. He picked it up with a scowl. The lawyer murmured something in his ear. He signed. My mother signed next, tears dripping onto the paper. Derek signed last, scratching his name like he could cut through the page. I pulled the agreement back and checked the signatures. Andrea nodded. Thank you for coming, she said. This meeting is over. Mom stood as if to follow me when I got up. Hannah, she said, Christmas. Maybe we can… No, I said. Christmas is not happening. Neither is Easter, or birthdays, or casual texts. This was not a fight. It was a pattern. I am breaking it. I walked out of the conference room. I did not look back. In the elevator, Andrea let out a long breath. How do you feel, she asked. Like I had just taken my first real step on legs that had been bound for years. Free, I said, terrified and free. I did not go home after the meeting. Instead, I drove north. The sun was already dipping low by the time the city thinned and the trees thickened. The sky turned a deep, bruised purple over the water by the time I pulled into the narrow driveway of the cottage. The little house glowed from the inside. Through the front windows, I could see light. For a split second, panic spiked. Had my parents defied the legal letter? Had Derek broken in? Then I remembered the text I had sent that morning, the one bright spot in a day full of hard things. I am signing the papers this afternoon. If I get through it without collapsing, meet me at the cottage tonight. I will send the guest card. I stepped onto the porch and keyed in the numbers. The lock beeped, then clicked. Inside, a familiar laugh greeted me. Look who actually did it, Tasha called from the kitchen. I told Mark you would. I walked in to find Tasha opening a bottle of wine with unnecessary drama, while Uncle Mark arranged 3 glasses on the countertop. Surprise, he said. We figured you should not walk into your freedom alone. I laughed, the sound coming out wetter than I expected. How did it go? Tasha asked, her eyes searching my face. They signed, I said. It is done. No more access, no more loans, no more pretending. Tasha whooped and held out her arms. I let her hug me hard, my cheek pressed against her shoulder. Mark patted my back awkwardly like he was afraid I might break. We carried our glasses out onto the back deck. The ocean stretched out beyond the rocks, dark and endless. The stars blinked on one by one, reflected in the ripples below. The air was cold, but the kind of cold that clears your lungs rather than catching in them. My mother said I will regret this, I said after a while. That I will be all alone. And do you feel alone? Mark asked quietly. I looked at him. At Tasha sitting cross-legged in the Adirondack chair blanket wrapped around her shoulders, glass tilted toward the sky. No, I said. For the first time, I really do not. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out and glanced at the screen. A notification from the bank app. Scheduled transfer canceled, auto payment for Derek Miles' car insurance. Scheduled transfer canceled, joint savings contribution with Leonard and Susan Miles. One by one, the automatic drains I had set up over the years were shutting off. For a long time, those payments had felt like proof I was a good daughter and sister. Each one had been a little tithe of my security to the altar of our family drama. Now they were just gone. The money stayed in my account. The energy stayed in my body. I set the phone face down on the arm of the chair. You know, I said, voice low, when I bought this cottage, I told myself it was for all of us. I imagined summer dinners on the deck with Mom and Dad and Derek and whatever kids he ended up having. I thought if I built the perfect place, we would be a perfect family there. And now, Tasha asked. I looked out at the dark water. Now I said it is home, mine, and for the people who actually see me. Mark raised his glass. To chosen family, he said. To shutting down emotional ATMs, Tasha added. We clinked glasses and drank. The tension that had lived in my shoulders for over a decade loosened another notch. The constant mental buzzing of worry of calculating who needed what and how I could provide it quieted. Family is not the people who share your blood. I thought the words forming clearly for the first time. Family is the people who do not demand that you bleed for them. Sometime later, after the wine was gone, and Mark had gone to bed in the guest room, and Tasha had claimed the pull-out sofa, I stood alone on the deck. The waves hissed against the rocks. The wind tugged at my hair. The little house behind me glowed warm in the dark, solid and sure. I was Hannah Miles. I was in my early 30s. I had essentially lost my parents, my brother, and the story I had told myself about what family meant. But as I stood there wrapped in a blanket that smelled like the cedar closet, the cold biting my cheeks, I realized the truth. I had not really lost anything with people. What I had gained was everything. People expect revenge to look like slashed tires or public confrontations or dramatic courtroom scenes. They imagine shouting matches on front lawns and plates thrown against walls. Sometimes revenge is quieter. Sometimes it is a woman changing the code on a lock. It has been a while now since that first legal letter went out. The navy silk dress still hangs in my closet unworn. The espresso machine went back to the store. I bought myself a really nice set of noise-canceling headphones instead. Derek's restaurant never reopened. From what I hear through the family grapevine, he is working as a manager at someone else's place now. He complains about the owner being too controlling. I try not to think about what his life would look like if he had ever learned to live within his means. My parents still live in that house with the maple tree out front. They still host holidays. I am told they have a new story about me now, one where I am an ungrateful daughter corrupted by outsiders. In their version, they did their best, and I turned on them. Let them have it. They have always preferred fiction. Here is my version. I was a daughter who wanted so badly to be loved that she turned herself into a resource. I gave my family money, time, and emotional labor until I was hollow. I thought if I rescued them enough, they would invite me fully in. Then they proved by the simple act of writing the wrong date on the card that I had never truly been included at all. I could have doubled down. I could have begged my way back to the table. I could have thrown myself into proving my worth by giving even more. Instead, I chose myself. I closed the accounts, I locked the doors, I stopped explaining. I built a life on bedrock instead of quicksand. These days, my days look different. I still work with shipping schedules and logistics plans. I still color code my files because old habits stick. But I actually contribute to my own retirement account now. The automatic transfers go into my future instead of someone else's crisis. I spend as many weekends as I can. Sometimes Tasha comes up yelling at the walls. Sometimes Mark drives up groceries and a new crime novel for us to read in companionable silence. Sometimes I go alone and sit on the deck with a blanket listening to the water. I let myself remember the girl I used to be. I promise her that I will not make her beg for love ever again. I have not heard my mother's voice in a long time. I miss the idea of her sometimes. Not the reality of the woman who weaponized my devotion, but the fantasy of a mother who would have been proud of me for standing up for myself. I have made peace with the fact that if you are listening to this and family that would crumble without your labor, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not selfish for wanting boundaries. You are not dramatic for noticing patterns. You are not ungrateful for refusing to bleed yourself dry in the name of family. Sometimes justice does not look like your abusers in handcuffs. Sometimes it looks like you alive and whole and free in a place they thought they could claim but never truly owned. The last time I was at the cottage, the sky was that pale, washed-out blue that only happens on cold mornings. I stepped out onto no one needing me to downplay my hurt to keep the peace. Just the waves, the gulls, the solid weight of the mug in my hand. That is my revenge. Living well, living free, living without them. If anything in my story feels like your story, tell me. Leave a comment. Share the moment you realized the table you were killing yourself to sit at was never really set for you. And if you want to hear more stories like this, more family drama, where the quiet one finally stands up, hit subscribe. There are a lot of us out here finding each other in the dark. We deserve better.